C9C, got the fucking juice.
Silver's the new gold.
Chris, this shit fun.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of JT Sports Live. I'm your host, JT. The college football playoffs are only a few days away. I want to come on here and give you guys my full CFP bracket prediction, round by round, who I have winning in round one, advancing to the quarterfinals, who do I have going to the Final Four, who's going to be in the national championship, and who's going to end up winning it all. Also have my picks versus the spread for the first round CFP matchups. And I want to give you guys 5 quarterbacks that can't be trusted in the playoffs. We're also going to dive into a few other topics around the NFL. I was recently listening to Bill Belichick's interview that he did with Pat McAfee after taking the UNC job. And I don't know, but something just feels different about Bill Belichick now that he's coaching college ball. It seems like he has some new energy. Clemson, wow. We have Clemson utilizing the transfer portal before we got GTA 6. That's crazy. I got thoughts on their newest transfer portal edition, the first ever under Dabo Swinney. And speaking of the portal, you know, with all of the madness that's been going on, these players, they're not just transferring because they're not getting playing time. Some of them have egregious demands in terms of NIL money and certain guarantees that they want. Like, there was an outside linebacker for Florida who not only wanted $45,000 a month, but he wanted to be guaranteed a starting job. He wanted to play a certain amount of snaps on third down. And with all of this transfer chaos going on, I understand why Nick Saban decided to, just say, fuck it, I'm done with this. Because, I mean, this is just a wild, wild west when it comes to the transfer portal. I mean, Bear Alexander, the former Georgia and USC defensive tackle, the dude is taking a world tour across the United States. He's already played in 3 different locations, from freaking Georgia, the USC, the Penn State. He's going all across the map now. And lastly, everybody is talking about the drama surrounding Travis Hunter and his relationship. This isn't really one of those kinds of podcasts when we get into people's personal lives, but I got a really interesting take about this situation. Before we dive into it, shout out to everybody that's tuned in, wherever you get your podcast from, Apple, Spotify, Amazon. The JT Sports Podcast is available. The links are down in the description down below. Also, follow us on Instagram at JT Sports _ and on X at JT Sports __. If you have a question that you would like answered on a future episode, you can send them in the DMs because, man, I don't think I'm going to be responding to any more comments after today, because responding to comments is just a waste of time. Because most of the time when people comment, they're not commenting to have a legit argument. They're either commenting to call me a clown, say I'm an idiot, and you feel me? It's like, I got no problem going back and forth with people as long as we're having actual legit dialogue about football. Most of the times it's just, I don't agree with your opinion, so therefore you're an idiot. I'm just wasting my time responding to y'all in the comment section. So if you got anything that you would like me to talk about, send it in the DMs. Shout out to everybody that's tuned in wherever you're watching, YouTube, X, Facebook. Shout out to Aaron Albany. He says they won't even play if they don't get their money. Hey, man, money talks, and they need everything. I saw recently there was a true freshman cornerback for Alabama that hit the portal, and now all of a sudden he's going back to Bama. I guess they read up on his NIL package. It's just wild and funny what's going on with the transfer portal. But let's dive into it. All right, so the college football playoffs are here. I want to give you guys my full CFP bracket prediction, round by round, who I have advancing from round 1 to the quarterfinals to the semifinals to the national championship, and who I have winning it all. In the first round, we got Clemson taking on Texas. I like Clemson to pull off the upset, and I like them to play Arizona in round 2. Arizona State, excuse me. And I get that Clemson hasn't really given you much to be confident about when it comes to pulling off this massive upset, especially with this game being played on the road in Austin. But with how wild this college football season has been with so many upsets, I'm expecting for Clemson to play their best football game of the season. Dabo Swinney, he's no stranger to playing in these playoff games. He has the second most CFP wins all time, only second behind Nick Saban. And I just don't trust Quinn Ewers and Steve Sarkisian to get it done in this game. Their best win of the season is against Texas A&M, and they didn't really play their best football. And all year, it just feels like Texas has just been doing enough to skate by. They just been coasting, and you're going up against a Clemson team that in the playoffs, I feel like they're going to flip a switch, and we're going to see them playing a level of football that we didn't see them playing for the majority of the regular season. Next up, I got Ohio State advancing to the second round, beating Tennessee. I like Ohio State to win this game, mainly because Nico Iamaleava, I just feel he's too young to thrive in a hostile environment such as playing in Columbus. Outside of his performance against Vanderbilt, he only has 2 touchdowns to 2 interceptions in all of Tennessee's road games this year. He has not been good on the road. And you're not going to be able to just run the football 30, 40 times with Dylan Sampson. You're going to have to be able to be a little bit more balanced and a little bit more unpredictable. And that's going to involve Nico being able to make some big plays in this game. And Ohio State, despite them losing to Michigan, this is still one of the best teams in college football. You can't define the team based off one win. You have to go off their overall body of work. And for Michigan, the game, every time they play Ohio State, that's their Super Bowl. All right? For Ohio State, we've seen them lose to Michigan the last couple of years, and yet when they get into the playoffs, they look like a better team than what they did against Michigan. Remember in 2022 when they got blown out by Michigan, and then they go into the playoffs and they only lose by a missed field goal to Georgia? So you can't define Ohio State based off one loss. When you look at their overall body of work this year, barely losing to Oregon, I like them to beat Tennessee. Tennessee has a good team. They got a good defense, but I just don't think they're going to get enough out of Nico to be able to win this game. When it comes to SMU versus Penn State, obviously I'm rolling with Penn State. I do like Rhett Lashley. I love what he's built at SMU, but up front, I feel there is a clear mismatch on the line of scrimmage between Penn State's defensive line versus SMU's offensive line. Back in the ACC championship game in the first half, Clemson was having their way with SMU. It looked like they didn't even belong on the same field, and if it wasn't for them rallying in the second half, they wouldn't be in the playoffs right now. And SMU is one of those teams that they are explosive. They do have a lot of speed, but too often, they have a lot of turnover issues. They got drops. They can get a little bit of the penalty bug. So this is just a team that, for them to win this game, they got to not beat themselves. And that's something that they've kind of done all year long. But nobody has been able to make them pay for it because they've been going up against inferior competition as comparison to the amount of talent that Penn State has. And plus, defensively, they're 94th in pass yards per game allowed. And this is a Penn State wide receiving core that low-key came on in the fourth quarter against Oregon. They had Tyler Warren, who's been the most dominant tight end in college football. You got a few other wide receivers who have been stepping up. You got a really good duo of running backs between Katron Allen, Nicholas Singleton. There's just a lot of weaponry that I don't believe SMU is going to be equipped to stop defensively. And offensively, I just don't see them being able to have too much success scoring on that Penn State front. And give me Notre Dame over Indiana. I expect that game to be a blowout. Notre Dame is the most disrespected team that's in the playoffs this year. You can't really give them too much flack for losing to NIU when nearly everybody this season has had an egregious loss. Alabama lost to Oklahoma and Vandy. Ole Miss lost to Kentucky, who was the worst team in the SEC this year, and Florida on the road. It's not about how you start, it's about how you finish. And Notre Dame currently has one of the longest active winning streaks among all FBS teams right now. They got a really athletic and lengthy secondary, and I don't expect for Indiana to have too much success throwing the football on that Notre Dame pass defense. I expect this game to look similarly like how Ohio State, Indiana did, because Notre Dame, they just have so much size and so much speed that it's going to be hard for Indiana to match that. Although they are a well-coached team, I just think there's way too much horsepower for the Hoosiers to handle. Now, my quarterfinals predictions. Who's going to advance to the Final Four? You got Clemson versus Arizona State. I like Clemson to win that game, and I like them to go up against Oregon because Ohio State, they did lose by only 1 point to Oregon the last time they played. But the thing is, I think that Dan Lanning is going to end up out-coaching Ryan Day once again. Ohio State has obvious problems up front. They're down a couple of starters on the offensive line. That's been their Achilles heel all season long. And Oregon is playing much better now than what they were the first time they matched up against Ohio State. Plus, they're coming off a first-round bye, which is going to give them an added week of preparation. And I really don't trust Will Howard in the spotlight this. As a matter of fact, he's one of the 5 quarterbacks in this year's playoffs who nobody should trust just because he has bad turnovers at really misfortunate moments. You know, like against Penn State, he opens that game throwing the pick 6. Against Michigan, he wasn't good in that game neither. I just don't think that having a guy like Will Howard really gives you a good chance to make it to the championship game this year with your offensive line not being as stout as what it typically is, and you not being able to be as dominant running the football as what a lot of us thought Ohio State would be coming into this year. Now, we got number 6 seeded Penn State against 3rd seeded Boise State. I'm taking Penn State to win, and I also like Georgia to win against Notre Dame. I'm more confident in Penn State crushing Boise State than I am Georgia beating Notre Dame, only because Georgia, they're not the Georgia team that we've been accustomed to seeing in years past under Kirby Smart. This Georgia team reminds me a lot of last year's Alabama team before Nick Saban retired. That was his best ever coaching job because that team wasn't really all that great talent-wise, and from performance standpoint, they just found ways to win, and that's what Georgia does. So I can expect Georgia being in a close game with Notre Dame, but ultimately I think they pull it off because of how good their defense is going up against a run-first offense in Notre Dame. And in the semifinals, who is going to end up advancing to the national championship? I got Clemson, Oregon, Penn State, Georgia. Most people probably wouldn't have expected for Clemson to be in this game and to make it this far, but if there was going to be a Cinderella team in this year's playoffs, I would pick for that to be Clemson. Clemson kind of has what you look for in your classic Cinderella story. Remember NC State and March Madness a few months ago? That's how I kind of look at Clemson. You know, they lost to South Carolina, but they won their conference championship game, and that gave them a lot of momentum heading into the playoffs. But I don't see them being able to beat Oregon and Penn State. I do feel they are a better team than Georgia, but I don't trust James Franklin against Kirby Smart. So I got Georgia versus Oregon for the national title. You got Kirby Smart going against his former protege. You got the master versus the student. And the last time these two teams faced off a few years back, the season like 2 years ago, I believe, Georgia absolutely crushed and smothered Oregon. This go around, though, I feel that Dan Lanning gets revenge on his under his former master, and he ends up beating Georgia, taking out the monster, and Oregon gets their first ever national championship win. Oregon this year, from week 1 to now, they've been the only elite team in college football. They got a lot of speed and athleticism on that defense. They got like superhumans on that side of the ball. And this year's Oregon's team, from what they have up front, kind of reminds me of those 2021, 2022 Georgia teams. And they also got way more elite weapons to work with on the perimeter than what Georgia has. More trustworthy quarterback play as well. If Georgia gets to this point, it's because they've been able to survive in advance. But eventually, that's only going to get you so far when you go up against a team that's talented and as well coached as what Oregon is. So I got Oregon winning it all. And these are my college football playoff predictions. This is my bracket. Leave your thoughts on who do you have winning it all, and what are your playoff predictions? Drop your bracket down in the comment section down below. Shout out to everybody that's tuned in wherever you're watching, YouTube, X, Facebook. Do us a favor, smash that like button. Helps us out a lot with the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe, hit that bell icon if you're new so you don't miss when we drop new content and go live. We are not just a college football podcast, but we are an NFL podcast. If you are a diehard football fan like me and you just eat, sleep, and breathe football, this is the right place for you. Make sure that you go ahead and subscribe. We talk college football and the NFL 24/7. I want to give you guys 5 quarterbacks in the college football playoffs this year that can't be trusted. Starting off with Notre Dame quarterback Riley Leonard. Any quarterback that gets compared to a poor man's Daniel Jones can't be trusted. He's a really good runner. Riley Leonard, when he runs the football, he's like Mike Oslott at quarterback. He's going to run you over. He's really physical. He's not one of those quarterbacks that once he gets into the open field and there's a 240-pound, 6'3" linebacker coming at him, he ain't going to slide. He's going to put that shoulder down, and he's going to try to run your ass over. So he's really tough. He's really gritty. But the problem with Riley Leonard is that he's not that accurate or that consistent as a passer. But the reasoning for why his limitations throwing the football haven't been exposed for most of this season is because Notre Dame has been so dominant running the football with Jeremiah Love. But once they get past Indiana and they end up having to face off against Georgia in the second round, I think that we start to see Riley Leonard's limitations come to fruition because Notre Dame isn't a team that's built to beat you throwing the football. Yeah, they got some good tight ends, but the wide receiver room is still not really that good. They don't really have anybody that's that consistent at getting open, creating separation against a secondary like Georgia's. So it's not all Riley Leonard's fault why he can't be completely trusted. It's just how Notre Dame is built. Notre Dame has never really been a team that has always produced elite wide receivers year in and year out. They got a few wide receivers that had came through there like Will Fuller and Chase Claypool. But this year, they really don't have that much to hang their hat on if they have to win a game relying on Riley Leonard's arm. They just don't have the weaponry on the perimeter, and he's really just not that good throwing the football. So if you can stop the run game, you force Notre Dame to beat you with Riley Leonard's arm, it's hard to trust them. Quinn Ewers, if Mid was a quarterback, it would be him. It seems like his only good performance this season came early on when Texas went on the road to Ann Arbor and they slaughtered Michigan. After that, it's pretty much been a lot of average to slightly above average quarterback play, and all of Texas' biggest games this year, Quinn Ewers has not played up to par with the kind of standards that you had for him coming into this year, being somebody who has started multiple years with this program. He's a veteran in Steve Sarkisian's offense, and I wouldn't be surprised if we end up seeing Quinn Ewers get benched at some point in Texas' first-round game against Clemson for Arch Manning. If Arch Manning was starting, I would pick Texas to win it all. The offense just looks more smoother with Arch Manning underneath center as compared to Quinn Ewers. He just starts games out too streaky. He's a really hot and cold quarterback. If he doesn't start the game out hot and Steve Sarkisian isn't able to script out the first 20 plays to get him in rhythm, it's tough sledding for Quinn Ewers. Now, statistically, against Georgia in the SEC championship, it looked like he had a great game from the box score. He threw for a bunch of yards, but that couldn't be farther from the truth. He had 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, and he just can't be trusted in late game situations with the game on the line. He just isn't clutch, doesn't really have a lot of poise, and he's not really that calm when he gets pressure in his face. When you can get after Quinn Ewers and you can get that pass rush going, he starts seeing ghosts out there, and he's not really the most athletic guy, so he can't extend plays, which is why you see Arch Manning coming in when they run read options or design quarterback runs, and I feel like that really limits Texas offense. And Steve Sarkisian has done a really good job of scheming around Quinn Ewers' limitations, but against Clemson, I really expect Quinn Ewers to struggle because Clemson does have a really formidable defensive line, and they got some pretty good corners as well. I can't trust Quinn Ewers in a spot like this, and I don't know how many of you Texas fans can trust them neither. Kevin Jennings for SMU. Now, this is a really good quarterback. I don't have him on this list because he sucks. I think the problem with Kevin Jennings is just that he can be a little bit of an enigma at times because he can get sloppy with the football. He can throw some really head-scratching interceptions at times, like against Duke. He had a lot of turnovers in that game. And against Clemson, in the first half and a few minutes into the third quarter, he wasn't really having that good of a game. He can kind of be a little bit up and down with his accuracy at times. He's just one of those up and down kind of players where there's certain moments in the game where he looks really good, and there's certain moments during the game when he doesn't look all that hot. And going up against Penn State with how much talent they have on that defensive line with Abdul Carter, the speed that they have in the secondary, I really can't trust Kevin Jennings. He's a nice quarterback. I think he's really good. I'm not putting him on this list because he sucks, because I do like his game a lot. I think he's one of the better dual-threat quarterbacks in the nation. I just can't really trust him to take care of the football or just have an all-around consistent game in the playoffs. Next up, I got Ohio State quarterback Will Howard. Listen, I'm not trying to be racist, but it just seems like Ohio State's offense isn't that good when they have a quarterback that doesn't have any melanin in him. And, I think that's a little bit more truthful than it is me being a little bit racist, because when Ohio State's offense was good and when they were throwing the ball with a lot of efficiency with C.J. Stroud, Justin Fields, J.T. Barrett, Ohio State has just had way better quarterback in the past than what they've gotten out of Honda McCord and Will Howard these last couple of years. These are two quarterbacks that you probably would consider to be game managers. And it would be okay if you had a team like how Georgia had around Stetson Bennett when they won back-to-back, because although Stetson Bennett wasn't really an elite quarterback, the supporting cast he had around him was good enough to help elevate him along with the play calling. Ohio State doesn't really have that. The offensive line isn't that good. You got good receivers, but the run game hasn't been there. And Will Howard, he's just done enough to get Ohio State to the playoffs. I don't think that he's good enough to help elevate this team to a national championship level this year. It's just that with his interceptions, they just come at really bad moments. Like against Penn State, he threw a pick six to open up the game. Against Michigan, he wasn't good. And he really struggles in the red zone. And it's a little bit puzzling because he is a pretty athletic quarterback. He does have pretty good mobility. He has the ability to put his shoulder down and get a few extra yards after contact. But he kind of is a little bit of a slightly better version of what Riley Leonard is. I don't really think he's that great of a passer. He's a little bit of a better passer than Riley Leonard, but I don't really think the gap is too wide between him and Will Howard in terms of their ability to throw the football. And when I just look at Will Howard, it's just like, man, I don't really see him being a quarterback that is meant to lead Ohio State to glory. When I think of Ohio State quarterbacks, I think of transcendent level quarterback talents. Either you're a superior athlete at the quarterback position, you're like a Terrell Pryor, or you're a really good thrower of the football like C.J. Stroud was. You know, I really just don't see the aura with Will Howard. And a lot of you Ohio State fans are probably going to say, well, JT, that's a BS analysis. But when you just watch Will Howard play, does this really look like a quarterback that you really can get behind, that you really believe can lead Ohio State and Ryan Day to their first championship under him? Post Urban Meyer, I don't see it. You got to prove me wrong, Will Howard. I'm going to be honest, I am hating on Will Howard because it's just, I just don't see it with Will Howard. I just don't see the juice. You feel me? Do y'all see the juice with Will Howard? Am I the only one who feels this way? I can't be the only person who feels this way about Will Howard. I really just don't see the it factor with him. I just don't. Against Michigan, that was all I needed to know. You know, like, it's one thing to be C.J. Stroud and struggle against Michigan, because look what the brother did against Georgia. He balled out. Against Will Howard, I can't see him carrying the team, putting Ohio State on his back. I really don't see it. I really don't see it. He's good enough to get them past Tennessee because Nico Iamaleava is the last quarterback on this list. And my problem with Nico Iamaleava is that he's just too young to trust in the playoffs. As a matter of fact, out of all of these quarterbacks in the CFP, he's the only one that has the least amount of experience because he is a redshirt freshman, and he hasn't played good on the road this year. If you take away his 4-touchdown performance, Tennessee's final game of the regular season, he only threw 2 touchdowns and had 2 interceptions in all of Tennessee's road games combined. He didn't play good against Oklahoma. He struggled against Georgia, and it's going to be tough sledding for him going up against one of the best defenses in college football. We seem to forget how good Jim Knowles' defenses have been the last 2 years at Ohio State. They got a really good pass rush with a really formidable secondary, and Nico just hasn't played his best football on the road. I just think with him being so young and inexperienced, he's going to struggle in a hostile road environment on the road in Columbus. So these are the 5 quarterbacks that you can't trust in the college football playoffs. I know a lot of y'all are going to disagree with me. I just know I'm not going to get any pushback on this list in the comment section below. Now, the last thing I want to talk about pertaining to the playoffs is I want to give you guys my college football first round picks against the spread. When it comes to Indiana versus Notre Dame, I'm taking Notre Dame minus 7.5. The reasoning why I like Notre Dame at this number is because from a talent and size standpoint, it's just a complete mismatch compared to them versus Indiana. The speed, the size, the athleticism that Notre Dame has on all phases of the defense, the linebackers, the defensive line, the secondary. It's going to be hard for Indiana to move the ball because the last time Indiana went up against a defense remotely as talented as what Notre Dame's is, they only had about like 60 total yards after their opening drive against Ohio State. And although Kurt Cignetti is a really good coach, there is a really big talent discrepancy, and Notre Dame is being slept on this year. You can't judge Notre Dame based off history. This is a way different Notre Dame team than what we've seen in years past because defensively, they're actually the Giants, and Indiana is a Goliath in this situation. When you see these teams line up for the first opening snap, you're going to see the difference in size and speed compared to Notre Dame's defense looking at Indiana's offense, because Indiana on the offensive line, they already got a few guys who are down with injuries as it is, and this is more of a pass-heavy team with how efficient Quarter's work has been. He's probably been the best quarterback in the Big Ten this year, but his receivers, I don't really see them having that much success against a Notre Dame secondary that, to me, it's the best in the country, because not only do you have a lot of athleticism, but you got incredible size and length. There's not a single player starting on Notre Dame secondary that's under 6 feet tall and weighs anything less than 185 pounds. Go back and watch that game against USC. You may be able to move the ball on Notre Dame's defense at times, but once you get into the red zone, it's really tough sledding against this squad. Like, they just have super long and rangy defensive backs. In Indiana, they're a well-coached team. They do well at executing the fundamentals. They don't beat themselves, but they don't have the size nor the talent to be able to hang around with Notre Dame this year. I expect Notre Dame to ground and pound Indiana to oblivion, but Indiana is really good against the run. They do have a formidable run defense, but one thing about Notre Dame this year is that they've been a massive bully all year long against everybody that they play, and I just don't see this being that much of a close game for the most part. Give me Clemson as a 12-point road underdog against Texas. I love Clemson not only to cover this spread, but I'm picking them to win outright because I don't know how in the world any Longhorns fans can have any faith they're going to win a playoff game with Quinn Ewers at quarterback. The man just can't be trusted. In all of Texas' biggest games this year, Quinn Ewers has not played up to the level of standards you expect from a guy who has had this much experience under Steve Sarkisian's system. Most quarterbacks that enter their second season under Steve Sarkisian, they take a massive leap, but Quinn Ewers has just been, and he's not trash, but he's not good neither. He's all right. And all right isn't going to get it done in the playoffs. Cade Klubnik has played really good football this year, and Clemson also has a really good pass rush. And when you are able to get pressure on Quinn Ewers, you start making him see ghosts. Remember when they played Georgia, not just in the SEC championship, but the first go around when Georgia came and they took over Austin? With those double mug looks that Georgia was sending at Quinn Ewers, he had a hard time being able to identify where the pressure was coming and what looks Georgia was throwing at him. He just is not a good quarterback when you don't give him time to throw. Now, if you give him all day to operate out of a clean pocket, of course, he's going to carve you up like how he did against Michigan. But against a Clemson team that is really good at getting after the quarterback, evident by what we saw them do in the first half against SMU, I really think this is one of those games that we see Quinn Ewers unravel. Steve Sarkisian probably makes a change to Arch Manning in the second half, but I don't think that'll be enough to overcome Clemson. Dabo Swinney has been here before. He has experience in these playoff games. He has the second most CFP wins, only behind Nick Saban. And experience matters in these playoff games. And Steve Sarkisian, you can't put it all on Quinn Ewers. He hasn't really been good in these games neither. We saw him get out-coached by Kalen DeBoer last year in the semifinals. Now, they came back and they made it a competitive game. They nearly won it in the end. But Texas is just one of those teams that when you watch them this year, you're telling yourself, is this the best that we're going to get out of Texas? Because you just feel like there's a different gear to this team that they just haven't been able to unlock this year. That's why I love Clemson to cover as a 12-point dog. Give me Ohio State -7 at home against Tennessee. Ohio State probably will be in the dogfight for the first 3 quarters because of how good Tennessee is defensively. But why I love Ohio State to eventually pull away and win this game by at least 2 possessions is because Tennessee is a one-dimensional football team. Because Nico Iamaleava, he hasn't been good on the road this year. As I said earlier, if you take away his final game against Vanderbilt when he threw 4 touchdowns in that game, he only had 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions all season in all of Tennessee's road games combined. He's not a good road quarterback. I don't think it's because he's not good. I just think it's because of his inexperience. And Dylan Sampson has been carrying Tennessee all year long. I think it was a major snub for Dylan Sampson to not be at least top 10 in the Heisman voting this year, because he has been the most valuable player for this Tennessee offense. And you can probably say the same thing about Will Howard. Well, JT, if you don't trust Nico Iamaleava, how the hell are you trusting Will Howard? The thing with Will Howard is that his supporting cast is good enough to elevate him. Does Tennessee have a Jeremiah Smith on their team? No, they don't. Do they have Emeka Egbuka on their team? No, they don't. They got some good receivers. I love Brew McCoy. I love Squirrel White. I love Deontay Thornton. But none of those guys are as good as what Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Egbuka are. Both of those guys are going to be future first-round picks. Egbuka next year and Jeremiah Smith 2 years from now. And I just see Will Howard being able to do enough for Ohio State to get this win. At least Will Howard can be somewhat more functional than what Nico is, because Nico in these road games, man, I just don't know what's going on with the brother this year, but he just isn't the same quarterback. And Jim Knowles has a really good defense. We seem to kind of overlook just how good Ohio State's defense is. If Tennessee can cover this spread, it's going to be because their defense, not only do they have a great game, but they force 2 turnovers that gives their offense favorable field position. They're able to capitalize off those turnovers with touchdowns. That's the only way I can see Tennessee covering in this game. And lastly, I'm taking Penn State to cover that 8.5-point spread against SMU as a favorite at home. SMU in the ACC championship, when you watch the first 3 quarters and some change of that game, they were getting bullied up front by Clemson. And at one point, you were telling yourself, SMU doesn't belong in the playoffs. But they rallied in the 4th quarter, and you saw how explosive their offense can be. But going up against a Penn State defense that's led by this humanoid Abdul Carter, I don't know where Penn State found this freak from, but he's one of those guys that you probably see on one of those X-Men, one of those Marvel movies. He's just a freaking superhuman, because there's no way a guy that has the size of Abdul Carter should be able to move the way that he does. This dude just has some rare twitchiness to his game, and I think that he's going to be a complete game wrecker in this game for Penn State. And SMU, as explosive and as well coached as what they are, sometimes they kind of beat themselves. Once again, go back to that ACC championship. They have to overcome drops, penalties, turnovers. Kevin Jennings can be a little bit hot and cold during games. I just like Penn State to win this game because they just are outright the more talented team. So these are my picks against the spread for the first round CFP matchups. And before we move on, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. If you're listening on podcasts, make sure that you go ahead and give us a 5-star review. Share this episode with your friends, family members, acquaintances. Christmas time is just around the corner. And why not give the gift of the JT Sports Podcast? If you love something, don't keep it for yourself. Sharing is caring. And also, you know, your Christmas gift to me can be giving me a 5-star review. It means a lot. Giving us a 5-star review is the equivalent to donating $1,000 to the channel. It means so much to us, helps us out a lot. So go ahead, give us a 5-star review. Apple, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get your podcast from. The links are down in the description down below. And if you're already listening on podcasting platforms, go ahead and share this episode on your social media platforms and whoever else you know enjoys listening to NFL and college football pods. Now, the other day, I was listening to Bill Belichick's appearance on the Pat McAfee show, and I don't know if y'all peeped this, but Bill Belichick, ever since he took this North Carolina job, he just feels different. You know, something is just different about him. He's more happier. He just has a new energy about himself. And I've never seen him this happy before. You know, he has a wide smile on his face. Pat McAfee is asking him, how's it going, making the adjustment from the NFL to college football. And he's just smirking, saying, you know, the transition really isn't that bad. As a matter of fact, it's a lot similar to the NFL. He compared the transfer portal process similar to NFL free agency and after the NFL draft when you're trying to sign undrafted rookie free agents who go undrafted. You know, Bill Belichick, it seems like he already has a pretty good understanding of how to work the portal. He also said that there are agents that he has worked with in the past when it came to representing NFL players that he has spoken to, because these agents with the new era of NIL, they're representing players at the collegiate level also. So there are players that have wanted to play for Bill Belichick. And it's no surprise because, listen, if your goal is to make it to the NFL and you really care about being developed for the next level and you're not chasing the bag, then there's no other head coach who's more qualified to help you reach your dreams than Bill Belichick. This man is an 8-time Super Bowl champion. He coached two of the greatest football players ever, Lawrence Taylor and Tom Brady. And what kind of irritates me is how people try to shit on Bill Belichick's legacy because they try to say, oh, well, he ain't nothing without Tom Brady. You know defense wins championships, right? Who found Tom Brady? Bill Belichick. Do you not also know how many other gems Bill Belichick has found late in the draft? Like, Bill Belichick is one of the best football talent evaluators in the history of this game. If there's anybody who knows talent, it's Bill Belichick. And he's not just finna be in the portal just buying up all the best guys available. He's going to be watching film, properly evaluating guys who are going kind of a little bit underneath the rug in terms of, you know, they may not be highly rated. Nobody really is paying attention to them. But Bill Belichick looks at them and says, you know what? If I bring you into North Carolina, I put you in this scheme, I think that I can get the most out of you and I can help develop you. And that's evident with him recently signing a center from Holy Cross. That was pretty good. And when I looked up this center, you know, it didn't seem like a lot of people were really after him. And then you probably are going to see a few more not really highly touted guys who Bill Belichick ends up signing. And they end up becoming some of the best players on this football team next season. Now, of course, he also has gone after some of the better talent out there, not just in the portal, but in recruiting as well. He recently was able to land his first recruit, quarterback Bryce Baker. Now, Bryce Baker was already previously committed to North Carolina before Bill Belichick got there, but with Matt Brown being forced out, you know, he kind of reopened up his commitment. So he kind of was thinking about going elsewhere. According to reports, he was leaning towards signing with James Franklin and Penn State. But Bill Belichick gets there and he says, you know, Bryce, like, come on to UNC, man. I'm going to get you right. He was at the basketball game with Bryce Baker. He got a outstanding ovation from the crowd in attendance. And Bryce Baker does have a lot of potential. He looks like a more bigger and more athletic version of Bryce Young. He's a 4-star recruit, 8th-ranked quarterback coming out of the 2025 cycle, and he was a top 100 player as well. So Bill Belichick, it looks like he's not really having too many issues with the NIL and the transfer portal, like how a lot of people in the media initially thought, because, you know, as expected, with college football pretty much being no different from what the NFL is, it should be no stranger to Bill Belichick, how to be able to handle negotiations. And even on the Pat McAfee show, he said, yeah, we've made a few deals with a few players. We've been throwing money around. You feel me? Like, Bill Belichick understands what's going on. And that's why he took this job. That's why I believe Bill Belichick is going to succeed at the collegiate level, because it's no longer about going into these living rooms of these recruits, meeting their parents. Same thing with the portal players. It's all about, do you have a bag for me and can you develop me? And Bill Belichick checks the boxes of both of those things. If Jim Harbaugh was able to win at Michigan and go back to the NFL, and he's now having success with the Chargers, and even before he took the Michigan job, he was successful at Stanford. He was successful with the 49ers. Jimmy Johnson, same way. If you are a great coach, it doesn't matter what level you're coaching at. It may be some slight differences between the NFL and the collegiate game, but good coaches just know how to coach anybody they're playing. And everybody that talks about Bill Belichick, when you listen to his former players, they always say that if there's anybody who can coach you up, there's nobody better than Bill Belichick. He just understands the game of football inside and out. And I was listening to Julian Edelman when him and Rob Gronkowski were on Marshawn Lynch's podcast, and they were asking him, how is Bill Belichick when it comes to, managing relationships with players? And Julian Edelman said that Bill Belichick doesn't coach every player the same way. Certain players, he may try to pee them off because he knows that they play better or they practice better when they're angry. And certain players, he may not give them a tougher time than other players because they don't respond well to it. But overall, Bill Belichick, he's pretty good at being able to adapt his coaching style to whoever he's coaching, which is what makes him such a great teacher of the game, which is why this is going to work. Somebody said, what's revolutionary about Bill Belichick taking this UNC job? What's revolutionary is that you got the greatest head coach in the history of the NFL coaching collegiate ball. We've never seen a head coach with this resume ever at this level. And that's why UNC, they went ahead and they pulled the trigger on them, although they probably had other candidates who they wanted. If you were going to make a big swing hire to get people excited about this football program, to get people to buy in, to get the boosters to buy in, Bill Belichick is that guy, because with the NFL model, it works well in collegiate athletics now because most teams, most of the top programs have a general manager. They have somebody that oversees, the allocation of funds. And all Bill Belichick really has to do is worry about the football. But what makes Bill Belichick so revolutionary is that when it just comes to understanding and teaching the game of football, there's no better coach that you're going to find but him. This dude is going to be coaching circles around Dabo Swinney because UNC doesn't have a good schedule. The two toughest games on their schedule are North Carolina State and Clemson. And listen, I don't want to see Cade Klubnik going up against a Bill Belichick coach defense. One thing about it, Bill Belichick ain't going to be giving up 70 points to a school like James Madison, and I can bet you money on that one. There's just so many good things about Bill Belichick. The fact that he's just such a great teacher and players are going to be learning from one of the best students of the games ever, one of the best teachers of the game, is what makes this such a revolutionary hire. Bill Belichick, yeah, he knows what an NFL caliber defensive end looks like, but he doesn't necessarily always go after the biggest and the fastest guy. Sometimes he's just looking for the guy that understands the fundamentals, that with a little bit more coaching, he can blossom into a better player than what expected. That's why I love this Bill Belichick hire by North Carolina, and that's why I believe it's going to work out. And it's just with the new energy that Bill Belichick has, it looks like he's way more happier to be coaching college football than what he was in the NFL, because anytime I've seen Bill Belichick in the NFL, he always had this grumpy demeanor about him. But ever since, he's been doing more appearances in the media, he's gotten his own podcast. Bill Belichick actually has a personality. And he wouldn't bag a 24-year-old girlfriend if he didn't have a little bit of charisma about him. And he's a pretty funny guy. I don't know how much he's going to be able to relate to the players, but he should at least be able to get along with them. And plus, if you're winning games, then it doesn't really matter at the end of things because winning solves everything. And a lot of these players, they know who Bill Belichick is. When you remember Tom Brady hoisting up all those Lombardi trophies, who is right next to him? Bill Belichick. His resume speaks volumes. And it speaks to, the kind of guy Bill Belichick is with all of these agents reaching out because their clients, these guys in the portal, these guys out of high school, they want to be coached by the GOAT. They want to be developed. They want to be taught the game of football. Like, there's not a better teacher of this game but Bill Belichick. This dude, he can talk about 4 or 5 hours straight about special teams, offense. He's not just a defensive-minded coach. When I saw Bryce Baker pretty much recommit to North Carolina, what I often saw in the comment section was folks saying, why would he commit to a defensive coach? If you watch Bill Belichick's Coach Podcast, go look up Coach Podcast. Bill Belichick. This dude is breaking down offensive formations. He's not just talking about defense. He's breaking down pass protections. He's breaking down the empty formations. Like Bill Belichick, this dude is a football nerd. He's a football aficionado. Rob Gronkowski was saying this dude understands situational football. There was never a single game that the Patriots went into when they were unprepared. I mean, all week throughout practice, Bill Belichick would be going through trends in the league. He would be saying, hey, when we go into this game, be prepared for this situation. Then the situation comes up during the games, and the Patriots players knew how to handle it. This is elite top-tier coaching that you often don't see at the collegiate level. A lot of these coaches are good, but most of the times they're only good because of the talent that they have around them, and they can hire good coordinators. Like Bill Belichick really understands the game of football to a degree that I don't think any other collegiate head coach has been able to outside of Nick Saban. That's why Nick Saban is the GOAT of college football. And that's why Bill Belichick is the GOAT of the NFL, because they understand situational football. They understand how to teach and how to develop players. And that's what makes this so revolutionary. His knowledge of the game, his ability to break it down, to prepare his team. I just think that North Carolina just completely knocked this hire out the park by getting Bill Belichick. And with his energy, the fact that he just seems more happy, I don't think there should be any question about if he's going to be able to get along with these collegiate athletes. And he already has a pretty good grasp on the transfer portal and NIL. Like, oh, well, he's going to hate having to deal with players asking for more money, transferring out. They were already doing that at the NFL level, baby. Come on now. There is no difference in the collegiate game than the NFL. There were players in the NFL that played under Bill Belichick because he was a GM too. They would go up to him and be like, hey, I want a raise. I want a contract extension. And Bill Belichick wouldn't budge. The only players I remember Bill Belichick giving contract extensions to were Rob Gronkowski, Julian Edelman, and Tom Brady. That's about it. I think this is a great hire, man. This thing is going to work. Can y'all believe that Clemson got a transfer out of the portal before we got GTA 6? This is unbelievable. Dabo Swinney has finally caved to the new age of college football. He's finally using the transfer portal. And before you Clemson fans hit me with that, man, Dabo Swinney has been using the portal. No. This is the first time that Clemson has gotten a transfer from somebody who didn't previously play with this program. They recently landed a commitment from wide receiver Tristan Smith from the FCS level. He played for Southeast Missouri State. He's a 6'5", 204-pound wide receiver, and he was one of the best receivers in all of FBS or FCS this past season. He had 76 receptions, 934 receiving yards, and 6 touchdowns, and he missed a few games due to an injury as well. Not only does he have great size, but he's a really good athlete. And when I was looking him up on 247 Sports, He wasn't even ranked at all. So Dabo Swinney, he's not just using the portal to just buy up all of the high caliber guys just to do so. He's looking for guys that fits the mold of what he's looking for in terms of receivers in his offense. He's looking for guys that fit the build and have the character of his program. And Tristan Smith looks like a pretty good fit. It's one thing to just be going after these 5- and 4-star guys who either they got kicked off the team or they're mercenaries looking for big pay raises. It doesn't seem like Tristan Smith fix one of those boxes. It seems like Tristan Smith is a guy that is going under the radar, that Dabo Swinney, when he brought him in on campus, had a good connection with because he embodies the program that Dabo Swinney is trying to build. You know, Dabo Swinney just isn't going talent hunting in the portal. Just because you're the best receiver in the portal doesn't mean that Dabo Swinney wants you. He wants guys that are high character. And getting a guy like Tristan Smith, although he's not one of those highly touted guys out of the portal, at least Dabo Swinney is utilizing the portal to get positions of needs because wide receiver has kind of been a position that Clemson has struggled at the last couple of years prior to this season. They do have Trevin Wesco. They got the other few good receivers that have really promising futures, but getting somebody like Tristan Smith is going to bring a different element to Clemson's offense because it's been a while since Clemson had a wide receiver that had this kind of skill set. They can go up, they can win those contested catch matchups. They can be a good red zone threat. Tristan Smith kind of reminds me a little bit of Mike Williams. You know, he kind of has a little bit of that kind of build to him, that kind of player archetype, if you want to call it that, to what Mike Williams or Martavis Bryant used to have. The very long, super athletic, have a really big catch radius. And with Tristan Smith being Dabo Swinney's first over transfer, it's fair to expect him to land a few more transfers. I'm not expecting Clemson to have a top 5, top 10 portal class. As I said earlier, I don't think that Dabo Swinney is going into the portal trying to buy up all of the best talent. He's going in the portal trying to find guys that fit his culture that he has built at Clemson, because that's the most important thing about constructing a team. That's why Dabo Swinney has kind of pushed back against the portal, because, you know, when you're getting these guys out of the portal, you're getting guys that really don't care about bettering your program. They more so care about being mercenaries, getting theirs. And when you have a lot of players with that mentality, you get what happened to Florida State this past season, going 2-10. Because when you build your roster mostly through the portal, you don't really have a lot of guys that you can say care about the program. They're willing to lay everything on the line that it takes for your team to win. All they care about is getting the check and getting theirs. And getting somebody like Tristan Smith, who nobody's really paying that much attention to, kind of shows you how Dabo Swinney is going about using the portal without completely bending on his morals. And I respect that about Dabo Swinney. I respect somebody that stays true to themselves. He's adapting, but he's adapting to the point where he isn't completely folding off what he's looking for. He's just not trying to buy up everybody. He wants you to be a high character guy. He wants you to be able to be willing to sacrifice anything that it takes to be a great player and to better Clemson football. There's a few more things I want to talk about before we get up on out of here. Before we get into it, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, follow if you're watching on Facebook or Twitter, X. Make sure that you hit that bell icon so you don't miss when we drop new content and when we go live. Remember that we're not just a YouTube channel. You can find us wherever you get your podcast from. Apple, Spotify, Amazon. The JT Sports Podcast is available. The transfer portal is complete BS. You know, like, it's egregious what's going on right now. I came across a story a few hours ago about how an outside linebacker for the University of Florida went up to Billy Napier's office and said, "Hey, Billy." And Billy's probably like, "Yo, what's up? What's good? What you want to talk about? Hey, man, if you want me to stay and you want me to remain a Florida Gator for 2025, I want you to meet these demands." Billy Napier's probably like, "All right, hit me. What do you want?" "I want $45,000 a month. I want a guaranteed starting position at outside linebacker. I want to be guaranteed to play on every third down, and I want more snaps in the rotation. And Billy Napier, I guess he was like, brother, we appreciate all your contributions to Florida football, but we're just going to let you leave. These kinds of demands are the reason why Nick Saban retired from college football, because these are egregious. These aren't even demands. These are just outlandish things that these players want. It's one thing to want to get paid. It's another thing to demand a starting job, because it shows that you're just lazy. You don't want to put in no work. You don't want to earn it. You just want things handed to you. So these guys in the portal, they're not all transferring because of money. They're all transferring because they want to get paid and they want to be given things. They want handouts. And that's everything that Nick Saban stands against. He's all for player compensation, but he's not for players coming to him asking for an egregious amount of money and then asking for a guaranteed starting job. Nick Saban has always been about players who are willing to do everything that it takes for the betterment of the team, rather it be being a second string, a third stringer, or being able to have to wait maybe 2-3 years to finally get your opportunity to start. But even though you're not starting, you're still giving it your all in practice. You're still going all out. You're still trying to improve yourself as a player. And not only do you have guys like this outside linebacker for Florida making these egregious demands, asking for guaranteed starting spots and a lot of money, but you got schools that are bribing players off other teams to come play for them. Imagine you being the University of Georgia, you're Kirby Smart, and one of your players comes up to you and he says, hey man, like, Oregon offered me $500,000 to start for them. I'm transferring unless you're able to match it. How are you going to be able to keep a lot of depth? Because we know the name of the game in football is injuries. Next man up. You got to have good depth in college football. You have 85 roster spots, 85 guys on scholarship. But when you got your second and third stringers who are being bribed with $100,000, $500,000 offers to come start, you know, it makes it hard to maintain that level of depth. And at this point, I think that the NCAA needs to get involved and they need to implement a tampering policy, because it's not just the Power 4 programs who are invading the G4 programs and bribing all of those players from lower levels to come play for them, but you got other Power 4 schools going to other Power 4 schools' rosters and trying to bribe away their depth, which hurts a lot of teams. It doesn't just hurt the elite programs like your Oregons, your Alabamas, your Georgias. This is everybody. And if you don't have elite depth, it puts more emphasis on you having to play younger players who may not be ready to play. And this is not good for college football. This is not good for the sport. This is why Nick Saban also retired, because you get into the end of the spring practice, right? You don't even know how many guys you're going to have on your roster outside of your starters, because you could lose majority of your backups because guys are getting offered a lot of money to go play elsewhere. Why would I wait my turn, be a backup for Alabama when Indiana is offering me $200,000 to start right away? You know, I don't know who would want to put up with this. It's one thing for coaches to be able to leave whenever they want to, but it's not like coaches are up and leaving right before the season and all of a sudden the team doesn't have a coach. That's what the difference is. And listen, I'm all for player mobility. I'm all for players getting compensated, but this is a little bit too much between guys asking for guaranteed starting spots and a guaranteed amount monthly. That doesn't sound like too much to y'all? Like, this is not what I expected when players were able to get compensated off their likeness. And I don't know why we don't have a salary cap. These teams shouldn't be able to spend no more than $22, $23 million. Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, they're buying up everybody. All the great recruits, all of the great portal players. I don't have nothing against it. It's just, to me, this ain't really about football anymore. This is more of a business. And these are collegiate athletes who also are student athletes at the same time. But at this point, you might as well consider this semi-pro. And this is why Nick Saban retired, because this ain't college football anymore. This is the NFL, and the last time Nick Saban was coaching in the NFL, it didn't really work out well for him. And not only do you have guys getting bribed off other teams, guys having egregious contract demands, wanting a lot of money, wanting guaranteed spots, but you got guys like defensive tackle Bear Alexander, who is on his third school, and 3-4 years, this dude has taken a world tour across the United States. He's been to Georgia, USC, and now Penn State. He's been to 3 different parts of the country. He's been in the South, he's been on the West Coast, and now he's going up north where it's cold in Pennsylvania to play for James Franklin. Are you kidding me? You mean to tell me that we can't put a limit on how many times these players can transfer? Transferring, there are guys that have been to 3-4 different schools. There are guys that transfer every single season. Now, some guys transfer from different reasons. Some guys are transferring because they want to go to whoever's willing to pay them the most money. Some guys are looking for guaranteed spots, and some guys are looking for both. But we need to put some restrictions on the portal, because without restrictions, it just makes it harder to coach these teams if you're Kirby Smart. And you may make it seem like I'm carrying water for these coaches, I'm crying for them, but I'm really not. I think that I'm being pretty modest about this. It's hard to field a team when you don't know if you're going to have half of your roster before the season starts. You could leave out of spring camp, and before you get to fall camp, you go from 85 roster guys to only 60 roster guys, which makes it harder for you throughout the season. That's why Georgia had a down year. When they had injuries on the offensive line and on the defensive line, they had to play a lot of guys that were not ready because they lost so much good depth to the portal. So I understand why Nick Saban retired. I don't blame him for giving it up, hanging it up, because this ain't college football no more. This is the NFL 2.0. The only difference between college ball and pro ball now is that one is played on Sundays and the other is played on Saturday. Shout out to my guy, Carl Marshall. He says, how many years you really think a 72-year-old coach has to just be great in college? And coach North Carolina was like 80. What old man Bill going to do in college? Hey, man, from what he said on Pat McAfee, he ain't really having no issues. And there are a lot of agents that are reaching out to him in that program on their players' behalf because they want to play for Bill Belichick. So, I mean, guys want to play for Bill Belichick. Guys know that Bill Belichick is a great head coach. And I don't think age has any defining factor on what you are as a head coach. Like, there are plenty of coaches that are up there in age. Like, Kurt Cignetti is one of the oldest coaches in college football. You know, he's like in his 60s. You know, for Bill Belichick, I think that he'll probably be coaching for at least 2 or 3 years. He'll probably win the ACC title, maybe make it to a playoff appearance, and eventually, you know, he'll end up handing it over to his son. Because it was in his contract that if things work out, then his son, Steve Belichick, he ends up taking over as the head coach. So I think this is a win-win for North Carolina. You get a guy who I think is an upgrade over Mack Brown, because even though they are around the same age, Bill Belichick is a better football coach than Mack Brown. Any player that has played under Bill Belichick would tell you that this dude is a great football coach. He knows how to teach players. He knows how to develop players. And he also just understands the game of football to where he knows the rule book inside and out. He's a walking encyclopedia when it comes to the game of football. You know, I don't think Bill Belichick needs to be coaching 10 years for this to be a successful hire. If North Carolina can win 8-10 games next year, and they can win 8-10 games the following season, and they're being successful, and they're relevant, they're competing for ACC championships and a spot in the CFP, I don't really think it matters how old he is. We know that he doesn't have that long to coach, but this man enjoys coaching. This man has dedicated all his life to being a coach. People keep asking, why is he so fixated on coaching? Why does he not just hang it up? Because he just loves football. He just loves coaching this sport. And when you just have something that you're really passionate about, something that you can't live without doing, it gives you a different kind of grind. It gives you a different kind of motivation. There's not a single head coach that I believe is more motivated right now than what Bill Belichick is. He's coaching for his legacy at this point. He wants to prove to people that, hey, I can win without Tom Brady. And that's why I don't really care that much about the age. Like, you can't put a number on a good football coach. If you're a good football coach, you're a good football coach. The problem with Mac Brown is that he couldn't get the defense right. When you're giving up 70 against James Madison, that's a problem. If Mac Brown was winning games, and let's say North Carolina went 9-4 this year, 10-2, nobody would be tripping on his age. People only trip on your age when you're not producing results. It's production-based business. So the age doesn't matter if you're able to produce wins. And that's all that matters at the end of the day. So it looks like Bill Belichick is having a good amount of success right now. To me, he was saying, like, he kind of looks like he's enjoying using the portal and dishing out contracts. With the way he said on Pat McAfee, he kind of said it with a smirk. He was like, yeah, we've been throwing some money around. Kind of had a little bit of a smirk on his face about it. It looks like he's enjoying this. This is a new challenge for Bill Belichick. And I think he's going to meet expectations. I'm not saying he's going to win a national championship. He's going to turn North Carolina into a powerhouse, but I do see this working out. I really do. Now, the last thing I want to talk about before we get up on out of here, Travis Hunter recently won the Heisman a few days ago, and yet it seems like all people are talking about is his relationship. Because during Heisman week for Travis Hunter, he had to go do a few things when he was signing autographs and taking pictures with fans. And there is a video circulating around on social media that has gone viral with his girlfriend kind of having a lot of attitude, not really being patient, kind of making it about herself. And it's to the point now where the internet is telling Travis Hunter to dump his girlfriend. And they're trying to tell him, hey, bro, like, she's using you. She doesn't really like you for you. She just likes you for what you have to offer. And here's my honest thoughts on this. We don't really truly know, to a certain extent, how good or how bad of a relationship Travis Hunter is in. Because everything looks a certain way when you're on the outside looking in. Travis Hunter's relationship could be better than what we see portrayed on social media, because nobody ever posts videos of the good moments that they have. It's always negative moments, like when she refused to kiss him and they got into an argument somewhat after the game, or when they got into that little spat when he was signing autographs during Heisman week. But have you ever seen any positive videos posted? Now, I'm not going to be completely naive and say that there isn't a possibility that maybe this shorty is just on the come up and she's only looking for a quick bag. Once Travis Hunter marries her and puts that ring on her finger, then she could completely flip the switch. Because in the generation that I am a part of, Gen Z is what they call it, a lot of relationships now are transactional. People only care about now what you can do for them, how you can benefit them. They don't care about how we can come together and become a dynasty. Nobody's trying to be the next Belichick Brady, the next Shaq and Kobe, the next MJ and Scotty. It seems like a lot of people are only looking for somebody that can give them an easy path to a free championship. Like when Kevin Durant left OKC to join the Warriors, he took the easy route. He wasn't in it for the long term. He was just in it for the rings and a quick come up. And that's how it looks like when you see all of these videos with Travis Hunter and his girlfriend. But who are we to criticize his relationship decisions? You know, this man has changed his family's life. He's going to be walking into generational money that can set his family for life. So therefore, his family can't really tell him to dump that shorty. Although I felt it was a little bit wrong during his Heisman speech, the first person who he gave praise to outside of God was, his fiance. It's like, I do feel like you should put your family first above all. Your family comes first, then your significant other. And it does seem like he is heads over heels about this young lady. You feel me? Which is understandable because we've all been in love. This is what happens when you're in love. Love can blind you. You don't always have the proper judgment. You overlook the red flags. And what a lot of people are trying to get through to Travis is that, hey, we're not telling you to completely dump your girlfriend, but we're telling you to be on the lookout, bro. Like, get a prenup, protect your assets. We don't want to see you end up losing half of everything that you've worked so hard for because you're one of one. She's one of a million. Therefore, it's no point in allowing her to steal half of what you've worked all your life to get. But we also got to understand that this is his life. You feel me? He shouldn't feel obligated to have to listen to anybody that anybody says because it's his life. He can make his own decisions. If this ends up not working out, then it's a learning experience. Some people have to learn the hard way. But we just can't make it seem like we know what's best all the time. Just because something looks a certain way on social media doesn't mean that's how it is behind the scenes. Now, in hindsight, if this is going on social media, then God knows what's going on behind the scenes. And with some of the videos his girlfriend's put out about him, like taking her to parties and waiting all these hours to pick her up once she got done, it doesn't really sit right with me. And I really don't want to see Travis Hunter, end up being in a situation where he ends up losing so much because of love. Because one thing about love is that as good as a feeling as what it is to feel loved, it's an even worse feeling to lose everything that you earned because of love. You feel me? That's why they say love is poison. But the thing with Travis Hunter is that I feel like he has enough mentors around his corner to be smart enough to advise him, hey, bro, like, just kind of look out. Because when you're in love, it's just so easy to overlook the red flags because you just think you're with the perfect person. And this probably is Travis Hunter's only girlfriend. He may not have ever had a girlfriend that looked as good as what she looks in his eyes. You feel me? But at the end of the day, I do kind of feel like a lot of people in the media are kind of overstepping their boundaries and not kind of respecting Travis Hunter's relationship with some of their opinions, just saying that this shorty's a gold digger, this shorty's this shorty's that. It's like, we really don't know. Even the dating coaches that come on here and say they know this, they know that, like, not all dating coaches' advice always works. You feel me? Some of their advice is kind of situational because sometimes, she may really just do love Travis Hunter. And maybe she is just in it for the money. We never really know for sure because people are unpredictable. You don't know who somebody is on social media. You don't know who somebody is privately. And another thing that Travis has to learn is that he needs to stop being so public with his relationship. You feel me? Like, you are the star, my dude. There's no reason why your girl should be in your Adidas commercial. You feel me? Like, this is about you. You're the main character. She's a side character. She's a supporting actor. You feel me? We only care about you. You don't need to be involving your girlfriend in every aspect of your professional success. You feel me? You earned this. You are the one who put in those hard hours, the blood, sweat, and tears to get to where you at. Not her. You feel me? Your family supported you. She supported you. It's great to have a supporting cast around you to help motivate you. But you don't have to make your life all about her, which is kind of what Travis Hunter has done. And this is why I give my own personal opinion about this. You see, the reason why a lot of relationships don't work is because when people get into relationships, this is why I don't have female friends as friends anymore. Because they're only there until they get into a relationship. Then once they get into a relationship, they make their spouse the world. They don't have a life out of their significant other. They go to work, they get home, and it's all about them. You feel me? When it comes to Travis Hunter, I do feel like with him clapping back at people, getting mad, turning off his comments, bro, you kind of bringing this on yourself because you're kind of forcing her on the public. You know, there are a lot of football players that have wives that aren't in the public eye because they don't really put them in the public eye. They keep a low profile. You know, they may post like a honeymoon or a marriage photo and whatnot, but you know, Josh Allen dates one of the most famous actresses in the world, you know, and she's not all people think about. You know, Travis Kelce, as popular as what his relationship with Taylor Swift is, you know, people aren't talking about Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift all the time. Most of the time when we think Travis Kelce, we think of Travis Kelce. We're not thinking of his relationship with Taylor Swift most of the time, only when they force it upon us. But it's like, if you want your relationship to stay private and you don't want it to take away from your personal achievements, then stop making it so public. You know, if you don't have your girl in the commercials, you're not making her the main character along with you on your road to success, you want to have so many people in your business. You feel me? It's one thing for your girl to kind of capitalize off the following because you do have other people who are invested in seeing what she's up to, but that's mostly women. But now everybody knows your business because you just been so public with everything, and everything y'all do is always recorded. She's everywhere you go. It just is a point where you kind of got to separate that. You kind of got to cut that off in a sense where, you know, you can probably leave her at home sometimes. Like Cam Ward, Dylan Gabriel, Ashton Genty, all of their girlfriends were in attendance for their Heisman nominations, and yet they weren't the main story coming from it. And it just is a little bit disappointing that, you know, Travis Hunter had this outstanding season as a two-way player when he dominated on offense and defense, and yet it seems like all people are really talking about is, you know, should he leave his shorty or not? His relationship drama. And, you know, with him coming on Twitch and defending her, saying that she's been drinking all day, it's like you don't do yourself any favors. It would be better if Travis Hunter and her just ignored the noise, just tuned it out, and then didn't make things so public. You feel me? Like, every post he makes, she's in it. You feel me? Like, make a few posts with just you in it, my boy. And that's why when it comes to celebrity relationships, oftentimes they don't work out when they allow the public to get too involved. With Travis Hunter being so open with his relationship, he's opened the floodgates for everybody to be involved. Now everybody has an opinion. Shannon Sharp, whoever else, Dr. Umar Johnson has an opinion about it. You know, like, you just kept it behind closed doors and you didn't really respond to the criticism, you feel me? You would be better off, because every time they talk, it just gets worse. Every time she talks, she just made an 8-minute video on TikTok. In the first 35 seconds, she said the main reason why he first wasn't my top at first was because he used to be a cheater. So you automatically are going to put it all on him. He's the problem. You feel me? It's just like, just stop talking. You don't need to respond to the criticism. You feel me? Just do what you do. You don't got to respond to everything. And that's the thing when you're on social media. Like, on social media, everybody has an opinion. And people can say whatever they want to. And sometimes words do cut deep. That's why I'm no longer going to be responding to comments after the day. Because some of the comments I read most of the times are nothing but just, hey, you're an idiot, you're a clown. But if I was to respond to them, and every time I do, nothing ever gets solved. Because people on social media, when they comment their opinions on things, they're not looking to come to a resolution. They're just looking for a debate. They're there to put their thoughts, their opinions, and force it upon you. And if you don't conform to them, then you're wrong and you're a clown, which is why there's no reasoning responding to what anybody has to say on social media, because nobody is ever going to come back and say, you know what, bro, I was wrong. I was out of line, because people have pride. People have egos. And when you're on social media and you don't have to confront nobody in real life on some of the things that somebody may say, you feel me? It gives people a certain amount of freedom, a certain amount of entitlement to say things. And if you disagree with them, they can clap back at you. It just is a waste of time. So for Travis Hunter, man, I just feel my advice to him is get a prenup. You feel me? Deion Sanders kind of already told him this. Keep your eyes out and stop making your relationship so public. If you wasn't so open with, if you want things to be private, you can keep them private. You feel me? It's like she already put her page on private. There's no reason for you to be having her in these commercials, bring her everywhere you go. Sometimes you can leave her at the house. Your significant other isn't somewhat your second half, but at the same time, like, when you're a man and you're in a relationship, you're bringing somebody along on your journey. You feel me? They don't just become the main focal point of your journey. They're just along for the ride. You're going to an amusement park. You're getting on the roller coaster. She's just there to enjoy the ride, to enjoy the moments with you, not to become part of them. So this is it for this episode of JT Sports Live. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. Shout out to my guy, Ed Sparks. He says, sup, JT, Pittsburgh Steelers for life. Man, I'm so mad at them boys right now. So mad at them boys for how they played against the Eagles, bro. I couldn't believe that. He also says, watch out for them gold-digging mannered young chicks, young buck, SOS in a few years. When he grows up, he will forget about Annie Mae. All I'm saying is, man, like, we really don't know what's going on in their relationship from what we see in public. For all we know, like, she could be an outstanding individual behind the scenes. And for all we know, she could be just as bad behind the scenes as what she is in public. You know, but it's just like, you know, he's getting this mad and frustrated over everybody having something to say. But you kind of put this on yourself, brother. It's like, you know, when you're a recognizable athlete, people are going to talk about everything that you do. So therefore, it's like, you don't want people talking about your relationship. Stop broadcasting it live. Like Lamar Jackson. Do you know Lamar Jackson has a daughter? I didn't find that out until a few weeks ago. You know, like, just because you're a high profile athlete doesn't mean that everybody's going to find out everything about you. You know, you can keep certain things hidden. You can keep certain things underneath the rug. You allow people to know what you allow them to know. When you allow people into your life, like how Travis Hunter is making his relationship so public, you get these kinds of situations when everybody's telling you to do something and you won't do it. Now, if it works out or not, I don't really got an opinion on that. I'm just saying, you know, just be smart. Get a prenup. You feel me? If you get married and it doesn't work out, cool, bro. That's what prenups are for. Put everything in your mom's name so you don't lose anything. There's a way to protect yourself. And that's what I think people are kind of overlooking. They making it seem like he got to leave her now. Like, if he doesn't want to leave her, he doesn't have to leave her. You don't got to give Travis Hunter no ultimatum. This is his life, and there's nobody else, Deion Sanders, his mom, his dad, that can tell him, hey, bro, you got to dump her, because he's a grown man. He can make his own decisions. But I appreciate you guys for tuning in. I will see you guys shortly with another episode.